All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm John, and I have an app, and it's in about 30 languages. So let's talk about that. So this is a lightning talk. So it's not going to be super fancy. It's only going to hopefully be 10 minutes. It's going to do Katie a big service by being a garbage presentation. So you can sort of talk to that in her talk about how to do a good presentation. So you're welcome. So I have an app, and it looks like this. It's basically to run competitions. You give away a Steam Deck, for instance, and you give people extra entries for doing various things. We started this app in 2013, very old app now. We've gone through many a Rails update, many a Nokogiri update. And so people said when we built this thing in 2013, about 2014, they said, you know what, John, that's a lot of English. You know what we would like? Polish and Vietnamese. I'm like, that's a good choice. We should do that. And so we did that. Not that way. We said, okay, look, you only want the competition itself to be in English, sorry, in Vietnamese and Polish. We can do that. We're not actually going to make the whole actual website in English, because you know what happens if you do that? Then you need to have like people that speak Polish and Vietnamese on support, and you need to go through a whole bunch of extra effort. And I'm like, okay, look, we're just going to do the main app in English and the admin interface in English, and then the actual, app itself that we offer as a product that can be in many languages. So obviously, going from one language to two is the hard part. Going from 2 to 30 is a relatively easy part. So off we went. And so we just went, all right, how do we do this in Rails? Because we haven't really done it. Off we go to the docs, and they just tell you exactly how to do it. The trick is you just put lots of T's in your app, lots of T's all over the place, many a T. It looks like this. You put this T here, it connects up to this file here, and it basically just works. This talk is not about how to do that because the docs are fine. It's pretty straightforward. This talk is about the workflow to actually get the right words, which is the hard part. This is easy. The docs are great. Fabulous. So we did this, and we have a big locale file. Now we'll get to this bit in a minute. Everyone's like, John, your YAML file is super flat. What is wrong with you? You are bad at this. It'll become apparent soon. So we went, this is Polish. You can tell by the number of consonants. And yeah, we made all these locale files, and we made this back in 2014 when we had a company of 3 people. I could just throw 1,000 lines at master and nobody minded. So that's how we got this in there. All good. We threw in a few other languages just to Polish. Screw it. If we're going to go in Polish and Vietnamese, we'll throw in Spanish too, because people asked for that. Job done. And so we actually got customers to build this for us, which was nice of them. It's like, we converted the app to use the Rails locale stuff. Good. And then we said, okay, here is our locale file in English. Could you give us the same thing back in Spanish, Portuguese, Polish, and Vietnamese? And they did. So they took a couple of days. We gave them a few months free of the app. Worked out okay. So off we went. Now, this is the reason why it's flat. We actually gave them the opportunity. So let me explain. This presentation is all just tabs. This is just my browser tab, which is why this thing is blinking right here. So basically, in an app, you can actually, the users themselves are able to actually just enter overrides for the locales. So if they want to change entries to points, they can just do that, or any words they like, pretty much. So that was pretty easy. Quick side note, if you do that, rule 1, add validation, because nobody can match quotes. The other one is use YAML safe load, not YAML load, because otherwise they will instantiate classes with arguments and you will get owned. So this is a bit of a weird case where people want to have your app in different languages, but they also want to change the language itself. So there's a weird thing if you want to do that. That's how we did it. Works out okay. Surprisingly, we built this in 2014, still going today. People are writing YAML, like customers who have never used YAML before. Like, you know what? I can write YAML. Off they go. And they override all the text. Some of them just go, oh, I noticed you got English. I just did the Turkish translation for you. You're like, all right, good on you. So off they go. So, and you can just go to our app right now and just access all 30 languages right now and just go and translate it into, ancient Greek if you want to. And people do messages saying, hey, can you do this language? Like, yeah, if you want to. Well, if you do this translation, all 817 keys, then yeah, we will have, our app will then be in your language. And people do. So we released it in, that's really annoying that it's in the way there. I can close it though, because it's next. All right, so yeah, we released that in April 2014. This is the story part. So we said, okay, we released it. It's in Portuguese and Vietnamese and English. Yay. How come I can't? No. Then, a few months later, people said, hey, you've just released that. You know what? We'd like it in French and German. And people just translated it for us. And that was really nice. So then off we went a bit more, and then we released some new stuff. Like, doesn't matter what this is. Basically, new features. Whoa, lots of words. Words. And so we didn't actually have the English and the German and French and Polish and Vietnamese words for that. So we're like, oh shit, those people were really nice to translate that. You reckon they'll do these? And I'm like, I don't know that they're going to be signing up to be translated throughout forever. So where do we go? Where do we go from there? Yay, Google Translate, that'll sort this out. And I wrote this little like rake job that would just basically, oh, new features being added in English, we'll just copy that, send it off to Google Translate and get the results back. People who don't speak English would be familiar with Google Translate not being perfect. And people were like, your translations are shit. And, something like, oh, I'll fix it up, all the rest. But generally, Google Translate is not good enough. So we learned that lesson. And we said, I know what we'll do. Oh, sorry. The other thing is, if you actually want to just not actually get customers to translate it, you can actually, do not just use Google Translate across the board. You go, oh, you know what? Google Translate supports 83 languages. I'm just going to translate my app into 83 languages today. People can do that perfectly fine by themselves without you doing a bad job of it. So don't do that. You just let them use the plugin in the browser and they'll sort them out themselves. So going for Google Translating within your app is actually worse than not doing it because people just use the plugin. And the browser works fine, provided you've written a moderately accessible app. So we went to this company. 1 Hour Translations, they used to be called, now they've got acquired. So we went through this process and they basically sent off our YAML files and said, translate these. And they came back within an hour, as the brand used to be. And they said, here we go, we're done. Then the customers said that they were not done and that the translations were awful. I don't know if we were holding it wrong or if they scammed us. Pretty shitty. Either way, people said, wasn't real good. And we'll sort of get to maybe, if it was a scam or not in a minute. But yeah, basically it was a bad result. So off we went and said, okay, how can we get real translations that actually have things like context? And like, people said, this is clearly Google translated. So I don't know if they just, the translators that people hire, they said that they use like, they've got down below, they've got, oh, we use like editors and professional, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that does not seem to be what we got. So off we went further and we got this app called Phrase. This is interesting, like it's a very complicated interface, but the interesting thing here, it's got branches, just like GitHub has branches. Or rather, it has branches like if I explained to my dad what branches were in Git and then dad implemented them on another website. So not really same, but kind of same. So off we went and we go, so now, what we did, we grabbed all of our languages and dumped them in this app. And then in the app, you just take a branch and you add some new features and you add some new keys. And then you go, okay, we've got this branch where we added the key, like, message for blah. And then you create a message for blah. Then you add the English version and then off you go. And all good. That's one branch. And you can merge it into your GitHub branch and, or Git branch. Everything's looking pretty good. And, you sort of got this bit in here where you got like, how do I minimize that? Yeah, lovely. Yeah, so you got like, this is the thing I think was the big difference. Description, screenshots. Screenshots are here. This is a pro tip. If you don't want to pay a ton of money to have screenshots in this app, you just put a screenshot link. So off we go. Here's the translation. Little drop down here is got all the languages, and you can say, oh, show me what this looks like in internet. Oh, here we go. Say, what is CS? Anyone know what CS is? Check if thing is CZ. We'll have a look. I don't know. Anyway, there I think is Norwegian. So yeah, basically it's all these ones, and you can just add them there and verify them and all that. So there's a bit of a workflow here, which is kind of nice, and all this context here, which goes to the translator, which seems to be a missing component of the other thing. So, and then once you've added all these keys in English, you just say, okay, cool, give me all the rest in select all, that'll do. You've got all these options. This is the thing, categories, style guides, all this sort of stuff here. Context. Context matters a whole lot in translations. Like competition can mean many things in many different countries and cultures. And we are all about competitions. We're not about, sweepstakes necessarily. We're not about, tournaments, like all this sort of stuff that just doesn't make sense. And so, having a style guide, the big thing we've written explaining competitions and entries, very important words to reuse. So off we go. And the translations themselves. So this is actually a branch that someone's working on at the moment for email verification, right? And, we sort of go through, calculate price. It's going to come out. It's per word. It's like blah cents per word. A lot of words here. This library Wi-Fi is pretty bad.
It's an library Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Wow, John, are you surprised? No, I'm not surprised. So yeah, basically, 335 euros for 81 words being translated 30 times. That's not bad, really. Think about it like that's actually not too bad. But yeah, we don't actually need to do all those. We've got a remote team. A lot of people speak different languages. So half of these, like, Spanish, Portuguese, Indonesian, Ukrainian, Russian, we don't actually need to pay for those. So we uncheck those and off we go. But then it basically comes in a few days later with all the translations. Sometimes you have to sort of poke it with a broom and say, hey, why is that order taking so long? You say, oh, sorry, the guy in Denmark's on holidays. But, sometimes it gets stuck. So you have to sort of give a bit of a prod to sort of wake them up and say, hey, guys, please get this finished. Oh, yeah, the order got stuck. Yeah, we'll find someone. So off they go. But yeah, generally, the reception to these translations is actual good, Vietnamese or Turkish, like it's actually real. So when we have our little workflow, this is us adding Telegram to our app. We got the Russian, Portuguese, Chinese, and Indonesian. All gets translated by people on the team, but all the rest gets sort of translated by people, through Phrase app, which uses this app, which is sort of linked here like Textmaster. So this is the workflow. Good. Working, things are happening. That's nice. So off we went, and we thought, okay. Along the way, we realized that we break things a lot, and so we added some screenshot tests to break things, to stop us breaking things as much. So that was good. Just a quick pro tip: if you do add right to left, everything breaks more because we basically, if you actually look at the code here, we actually just have this here. It's pretty much just to handle right to left, Hebrew, Arabic, Farsi. We just have a little override style sheet. And everyone forgets that. Everyone always forgets that. But Percy, the translate tool, or the screenshot tool, does not forget. And it catches us every time. So if you're going to do right to left, there's a pro tip. Screenshot testing will stop you balking it. So the other thing is there's this part here where basically there's a command line interface with Percy, where it basically just pulls in a whole bunch, it basically pulls down your branch to your local branch and updates all your locale files. So all those, massive flat YAML files I've got, they basically just dump them over the top based on what Phrase has in its keys. So it's working pretty nice. So that's how we do it. Is that the end of my presentation? Yes. So that's where we're at. So there is John's lightning talk. Hopefully it was lightning enough for you. It was certainly all over the damn shop. Right now we can basically add new shit in 30 languages. Fairly often we do this, every month, adding new stuff with translations in actual native speaking words, to the app. So it's working pretty nice. The Google Translate phase was a dark moment in our company. And we sort of got past that now. And I've sort of learned why you don't do it. And the thing about, we didn't translate our pricing page. People will do English. That's fine. We're only going to speak to them in contact us page is going to be in English. It's all fine. Depending on your business needs, you may want to translate your entire app everywhere. Like, obviously Windows is translated in everything because it matters. Whereas, for us, the prospect of getting customers who don't speak English in Turkey is pretty negligible. But, their customers care. So we did it for them. We use Phrase. There's another one called Locale app, and they were pretty good. Like they're actually specialized in Rails, which is really nice. But the problem was they didn't actually sort of close that loop in the actual getting translations for us, that Textmaster thing where they actually outsourced local people to do the translations. It wasn't there. So you all look like just stunned. Yeah, that was steps 1, 6, 7, 8, and 10 of how we do this. So if you have questions about the other steps I didn't mention and forgot to
Just curious how you decide which languages you support.
Usually some customer says that they'll do it for us. Because, if we just went to Phrase App and said, oh, you know what, we'd like to do it in this language, it's going to cost us like 2,000 euros or something like that.
Someone wants to use it and they're prepared to actually do the work. And
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so they basically go through it. We say, I'll give you like 3 months free of our whatever plan, and worth a couple $100. And they go and translate that big old YAML file, and call it square.
How much latency do you reckon it adds to shipping features? Like, even with what seems like a reasonably efficient workflow around it now, there's got to be some, we've got the code working, now we've got to get all the screens before we can actually put the customer.
Yeah, like friction wise, it does have friction. I get you what you're saying there. So look, Phrase will take us, a couple of days waiting for, the guy that does Portuguese is away until Wednesday. And like it adds a couple of days here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, a week is not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, we can always just ship it with English vanilla. Like, say we needed a feature tomorrow, we just ship it in English. And, the Rails framework, which, you can read about this, it's on part of my talk, it'll just like, oh yeah, fine, we'll just use English for that. Like error messages sometimes, like niche error messages, like, you've got 12 tabs open and you do this weird workflow and something breaks, we'll be like, I might just Google Translate that one, who's going to care. We're a bit sneaky about that, but, like this is an error message, it happens to, 10 users a month or something like that, on an app that's, millions. So.
Do you have like any, sitting competition space, you said, like they translated the words that weren't competition. You got like any legal risk with like using words that might be a certain thing in a different language and then someone like the terms and conditions? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Shit, that was something I was going to mention. So here's another thing. So the actual widget itself, this is an interesting thing that's kind of maybe subtle and you don't think about as you do it, right? You are in the app here and you've got all this crap, right? All this sort of setup, terms and conditions, all this sort of stuff, right? To actually build an app that handles localization, but then also handles the user inputting it in every localization they care about, that's a nightmare. And we just didn't solve that problem. We just pick one language and that's it. So look, that's not a great solution. People in Canada hate that because they have to do it in French and English. Ugh. So they're like, oh, can you do it? I was like, just run 2 competitions and make them mutually exclusive, like just whatever. So yeah, actually building an app that handles CRUD in every language you want to support is a nightmare. So yeah, all the terms and conditions, as you say, they are in whatever language you type them in. So yeah, like, the prospect of, auto translating legalese, messy. Yeah, like, competitions being a different word, but, tort versus tart, it's going to be a disaster. So. Yep.
From the Phrase CLI, are they all just flat YAML files? Or do you have to then like translate them from what Phrase gives you to your?
No, it's exactly over the top. So pretty much we have made our YAML, which is just valid YAML, conform with their format. So like they break it 80 characters, things like that. And we say, okay, that's the truth now. So it's still flat. Oh, sorry. It's not exclusive. In hindsight, the flat thing was kind of stupid. And we probably should go around and build an interface to actually handle that properly. Because right now, just allowing users to do YAML is clearly not great. But, we went, oh no, we'll keep it flat with underscores because then people get confused. But you can just use dots. And so, you actually handle like nested YAML files, but it just uses dots instead of underscores. Like it's actually fine. So yeah, we sort of made a mistake in sort of doing it flat when we could have just, for very little overhead, just made it, hierarchical.
Paul online asked, do you do anything special when you have translation for strings that are not referenced in your application anymore? Like they become obsolete, the dictionary don't get loaded unnecessarily.
Look, that's like unused constants. You just forget about them and never remove them. If I'm being totally honest, like there've been cases where you have removed stuff, but it's pretty rare. Like you just delete it from Phrase, pull it down from Phrase, and it just removes it. Yeah, and hopefully that's not using it. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Have you ever given away free knots and it turns out the translations are bad?
I worry about that every time. Oh my goodness. People are, and like we just went through this process. Someone's like, your Arabic translation is correct, but it's not Arabicified or something. I'm like, what does that even mean? And so I was like, just really confused. And I'm like, and I get their translations. I put them in Google Translate. Like, is this guy just trying to mess with me? Because people are like, oh, I'll give you a translation for this. I'm like, are they doing it? Is this going to be the one that finally ads just like, you know, my hovercraft is full of eels all over the damn shop. And I'm like, nobody's ever done it yet. So I do not trust people. But I always verify it and nobody's tried to screw me yet.
So you say if Google Translate is close enough, then reverse translate.
Yeah. So like, you know, it's clearly, you know, I can sort of say, okay, look, it seems kind of about the same, but it's like clearly not them saying, you know, this app is garbage and you should go elsewhere or anything like that. Like it's, yeah, I go and have a look and say, okay, yeah, this roughly looks, you know, pretty legit. Oh, we've also got another thing. Yeah, the actual clauses you're talking about, the terms and conditions, we actually disallow quite a few keys in our file because Facebook, for instance, has very clear wording on what you're allowed to say and not allowed to say. Like, you know, there's like this disclaimer from Facebook that you have to put on your page. And we're not going to let people say, hey, do whatever you like, ha, 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 Facebook, because then Facebook's going to ban our app and that'd be bad. So we pretty much have to disallow people from editing those like disclaimers. So yeah, you can edit any text except some text. Cool. I actually was curious because this is just some crap I came up with on the fly back when, you know, I just made stuff up all day. So what are other people doing? I'm curious.
I've seen localized views,
Mm.
and then that it's another sort of similar phrase, but then it can also integrate with Figma. And so design files as well can also include translations, which works for mobile applications that have like App Store presence. And so then the different translations through the App Store itself can be in each individual language that's been delivered in.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Because we use Figma and that, yeah, that would be handy. Because we had times where like, you know, we've got like the letter K, like 1,000 entries is 1K, right? But then K in Greek is 1,200 characters. It's just stupid. And then the whole thing just breaks out of the CSS and it looks horrible. So, yeah, like that sort of stuff being found in the design phase would be super handy. So what's it called?
Localize.
Localize. All right, cool. Another question was,
My question, have you had to change the design because of different languages?
no, you just make the text slightly smaller usually, or just, you know, just put in K and nobody really notices.
I use transfix.
Transifex?
Yeah, it's good for getting community members to like throw in and stuff, but the problem we're having at the moment is we can't actually work out without paying more money who's actually putting in the translations. Like we'll give everyone accounts, but it's like, well, who's recently done stuff like the next release of Figma? Someone else use translates? Great. It's not my problem.
Like localize sounded really good at the moment. Ah, okay. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I can say a little bit about how Embodied Elements did it,
Yeah.
which is kind of a more hand-rolled version of some of this stuff. So effectively there was a pipeline that it went both ways. So you committed stuff to a Git branch. It would pick up new keys in the Git branch, send those off to our translators to do the translation, bring it back, add it to the Git branch. Off you went. It was good, but it was really lacking the context. We get a lot of bad translations because the translators have got a string. And if it was one or two words, like part of the reason Google Translate works so badly on this stuff, a lot of the times it's 2 words.
Yeah.
Without context, Google Translate can't do anything with that. So we had that problem with active translators too. We weren't giving them enough context a lot of the time. And then the other fun bit for Embodied Elements was we have lots of users submitted content, which is all in English. So how do you deal with that? And the answer for us was badly. there was a lot of Google Translate going on.
Yeah.
So for example, search worked. You searched in a different language, which Google translated to English and do the search. And the results not good. Not good at all.
Is it better than nothing though?
Marginally. It is a little bit like what you were saying about you know, the users who actually care what one will translate plugin, understand the, you know, that is good or bad and the limitations of it. We do it for them, they don't understand that there's limitations.
Yeah,
So I would argue that it was probably worse.
Yeah, because like anyone with clues will be like, I'm just going to go to Google translate the word cat to this, and
Yeah, and with us doing it silently for them in the background. And not knowing this bit,
yeah, as a person that that would give me the shits. Yeah.
You did a sensible thing, which is which Envato didn't do. Envato went, we want to do different regions. Let's do half a dozen off the bat. And that was I think a mistake. I think you did the sensible thing. We're going to add one or two, and we're going to add more as the demand is there. Because it's a lot easier to get it right for 1 or 2, and then expand than it is to try and, you end up doing a sort of slightly half-baked job of a dozen.
Yeah.
And then try to improve them.
Yeah, like we have a bit of an issue now, like what is it? Like Serbian and Romanian and Farsi. I don't think anyone's using it at the moment, so we probably should just remove them, but you kind of feel bad for removing them.
Yeah, it's very hard to get rid of them. One of the decisions in Envato made was to have South American Spanish and Spanish.
Oh, we got that. We got, oh, sorry, no, the Brazilian. We got Portuguese, Brazilian, and Brazilian.
Yeah.
Brazilian. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why the decision was made, but South American Spanish and Spanish are marginally different at best. So it was not really worth maintaining the 2 translations.
Yeah,
But it was really hard to get rid of them once you've got them. Somebody was.
Yeah, we've got native Portuguese speakers on the team, so we just make them do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have to pay for that separately, which is nice.
Can they do both?
Yeah, they can do, but they do Spanish. I don't know if they're just tricking me on that. Like I've never verified their translations because I went to Spain with them, and I'm like, this guy doesn't seem to speak Spanish that well. But he's like, yeah, he's like, when like trying to get the check, and I'm like, he's taking a long time. I don't know if he actually speaks Spanish. It's a bit weird. Yeah, so that's a possibility. But yeah, like,
Did you solve the context problem?
Not really. Mostly we solved it by when we got egregiously bad translations back from notice and fix them. But that, like, I like that ability to put some screenshots and
yeah,
let the translators see the thing in context.
it's been working pretty well. Yeah, like I feel like, if you had a good linter, you could actually put like a linting rule on your locale files and it would say, hey, you have to add context to this thing here,
Yeah.
and then maybe a screenshot as well. And then you can use like GitHub Actions and like, I'm hoping someone's done that. I'm like, I'll just come to your house and like just copy it all. But no, turns out, there's an opportunity.
Yeah. There's lots of things too where it's like, file and open and save and cut and copy and paste. There are conventional translations for all those terms in the context of a computer.
Yeah.
But if you just throw one of those words into Google Translate or give it to translator devoid of context, you might get a completely different word to what you would normally see on a computer in a different language for those. So the context is super important.
Yeah, it's like when we have the key called thousands and it's the letter K, like Google just does not know what to do.
Yeah.
It's just like K, guess it's K. Like, yeah.
Is it like a library of those IT related standard translations?
Oh, there will be, for sure. Probably, maintained by some underappreciated person.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I don't know if I've just completely lost track. I don't know, 10 minutes, was it? Probably not.
Good.
No.